Here with Greg Lefkowitz of Bond Street Mortgage. He is a mortgage advisor and has a tremendous amount of experience in the moving industry, which I'm going to ask him questions about. Greg, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you on, and I want to give some of our viewers just a background of who you are. So if you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. So again, my name is Greg Lefkowitz. I'm with Bond Street Mortgage in Paramus. I'm a mortgage advisor, and we help people purchase their homes. We help people refinance. Really, we like to look at the whole financial picture and see what needs fit them best, because every person is individual, everyone's situation is individual. So we really take an advisory role in this and really try to build rapport with somebody and understand their particular needs. So that's my current position. I've been doing that for several months now. For 17 years prior to that, I was in the moving industry. So I worked for a very large national moving company, and I help people relocate them and their families around the country. So I have a wealth of knowledge in that, and I can definitely help with any questions people have, or any needs they have in the moving world.
Awesome, and I appreciate you joining us and sharing that side of your knowledge, because in particular, I want to provide value for those who are looking to move right now. New Jersey has seen a ton of people coming in from New York City throughout all the boroughs. And I know that moving is a huge issue for people, especially coming from New York, where a lot of people don't even own cars. I shouldn't say a lot of people, but depending on where you are in the city, you might not have a way of transportation. So I think understanding the moving industry is so important for these people. And I would love to pick your brain about it.
Sure. No, absolutely.
Awesome. So my first question is, what are some things that people can expect when hiring a moving company? How can they get their belongings ready, or even before that? What are some things that they should keep in mind?
Well, in my suggestion, as with a lot of different services, so let's say you hire a plumber, an electrician, or really anything, for that matter, you usually get a couple estimates. You want to understand what, number one, in the moving business, make sure it's an actual moving company. There's a lot of brokerages out there. There's people who are not, on the up and up. So you really want to make sure you understand who you're working with. So that's the first thing. So I'd recommend reaching out to, 2 or 3 different companies, unless you're familiar with somebody, through a direct referral. So that's one of the pitfalls, and one of the first things I definitely would recommend, that's the first stage of the process. Then you get estimates, so you understand, what the costs are involved in the actual move itself. So, are you going to be packing yourself? Do you want the moving company to pack for you? Is there insurance coverage included? If so, what does that mean exactly? Because there's a lot of things that people, they just look at the bottom line number. They don't really understand the full process. So that's kind of the beginning stages, when you're moving, of what you should be looking for.
Awesome. So what are some ways that I guess people can start to, figure out what's the right moving company for them? Are there bigger companies, smaller?
They could both be good, so there's really no rhyme or reason to that. I just recommend that people, find a company that has a brick and mortar, place, they have a warehouse, they have their own staff, they have their own people, and when I was in the industry, I never tried to scare people, but there's a lot of times when, again, you go on the internet and you just find something and you see these ads, you put in moving, all of a sudden you get 50 phone calls and emails, and, you're just inundated with, and they're not even moving companies half the time. They're just some sort of brokerage. So you just really want, again, finding a quality company in the first place, reaching out to family and friends, and online, like your Facebook page, for instance, and asking for recommendations of local companies. I'd recommend, if you're moving from New York to New Jersey, to find somebody in New York or New Jersey, because again, when you go online, the company could be based in Florida or Texas or something like that. So you kind of want to find somebody local, because if any issues do arise, you have some recourse and you kind of understand, what's going on.
And what's the pricing model, and how does it usually, what's the cost structure in terms of moving?
Sure. So, I mean, moving, it can vary. So moves locally can be based on time. So you have, materials and labor, and then, how many trucks are used, so that's like a local move. Typically from New York to New Jersey would be based on time. It could be based on weight and mileage. So, the overall volume or weight of what's being moved. Sometimes it's a flat rate. But again, there's types of things you have to understand, because people will get an estimate for a move, and let's just say that one estimate's $1,500 and the other one's $3,000, and people say, well, how can it cost twice as much? Well, the end cost may not be twice as much. It's really just what the estimator is seeing. It's also what the customer's telling the mover, and it's also, things like packing and coverage, like insurance. So again, there's a lot of things that people need to understand, and don't just look at the bottom line number. Understand exactly what the mover is going to do for you.
And I'm sure that you can, or maybe you can tell me that, when you're moving, you can kind of have different, I guess, levels to it. Like maybe someone doesn't want someone else packing up their belongings. Is it more cost effective to do that yourself?
Yeah. So basically, in general, the more you pack yourself, the more prepared you are, the less the mover has to do, and therefore the cost is less. One thing people do need to understand about packing, though, is the liability of it. So, for instance, if you pack a box of your own dishware, and that mover picks up, transports, and delivers that box, and the box looks okay, but you open it up and your dishes are broken, that's not the mover's liability, because they did not pack those items for you. You did not pay to have them packed. So the liability comes into it. What I've found over my many years of experience doing it is it really comes down to people's time and effort. So do they have the time, and do they want to pack up 30, 50, 100 boxes? I mean, depending on how much they're moving. So that the time plays into it, but then again, the cost, so if a mover packs 100 boxes for you, there's obviously a cost there, and you have to, and also timing, that's another thing to factor in. If you don't have the time, it may take a mover 2 days to complete a move versus 1 day, depending on, what you choose to do.
Okay, so in terms of cost saving tips, are there anything specifically that people who are looking to move that they could do to save some money? And if so, what are those?
Yeah, so savings, I mean, so again, packing is a big part of it. Pack yourself, be prepared, pack well. Anything, what I always said was anything worth packing, you might as well do it right. If not, trash it. That's the thing that people really should focus on when they're moving, is really getting rid of unwanted items. If you spend, 3 hours packing up, half a kitchen's worth of stuff only to get it to your new location and either get rid of it there or just trash it at, a year later, even, it doesn't make sense, so just do a lot of planning ahead, getting rid of items, and then plan your time accordingly, pack early, pack things that you don't need early. So, seasonal items, or things you just don't use on a regular basis. So again, it's all about preparedness really when it comes to that. And again, the more prepared you are, the less it's going to cost. That's really that's the way to look at it, because a lot of people can do a lot of these things. They can pack on their own boxes. They can, do a lot of those things to limit, the amount of work that the moving crew has to do for them.
Would you be able to give us an example of maybe someone moving from, let's say, the Bronx, New York to Paramus, New Jersey? Just a rough estimate of what that might cost someone. Let's say, they have a 2-bedroom house, minimal stuff, not too much stuff, not too many belongings, but just like the average person.
Sure. I mean, that's a hard question to answer. I'm going to answer it, but, because the thing is, you really need to see what somebody has. One person's idea of what they have and what, it actually is can vary greatly. We used to get calls all the time. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm moving from, here to here. How much does it cost? Well, 2-bedroom apartment, one person may just have a bed or a mattress on the floor and one box, and another person may have, an 8-piece bedroom set that, weighs 3,000 pounds. So, it varies greatly. But, to answer your question, in general, something like that would probably be in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, I would guess. But again, it can vary. It really depends on the individual situation. Everyone's goods are different. Everyone's situation is different. The timing is different. The distance. So these are the questions that people should be asking their moving company. They shouldn't just look at the bottom line number, because that's where people get themselves in trouble. They say, oh, this guy's the cheapest, it's fine. I'll be fine with that. And that's, one of the big pitfalls.
I guess my last question would be, I guess the cost and time, is it worth hiring a moving company when you can maybe just, rally up some friends and families, pack the cars and head over? Or would you say in your experience that it pays to hire professionals?
I would say that for probably 90% of people, it pays to hire a moving company. If you're, let's say, relatively young and maybe in your 20s, and you're buying your first house and you have a 1-bedroom apartment's worth of stuff, and you rent a U-Haul, and you decide to do it yourself with a couple friends, just plan ahead. Make sure you actually understand what is involved in doing it, and you could save money. Let's say a small move is $1,000. It's still $1,000 that person wants to save. So as you get older and accumulate more stuff, and you have, let's say you have children, or you have, several rooms worth of goods, it becomes a lot more difficult than people would imagine to move, so they think, oh, just get a truck and I'll do it. And, they're in their mind, they may think it would take 6 hours, be like, oh, about, 6-7 hours. And, all of a sudden it's midnight and you're still, loading up the truck. And then, so it just turns into kind of a much more difficult situation than you could have imagined. So to answer your question, it really depends on the individual. I have found that, as people get older and into their careers and lives, they tend to hire a company just to keep it more simple.
I would totally be one of those guys packing up the truck and the U-Haul at this point, but I could definitely see the value for sure, especially when you have big furniture and, you're busy, you just want to hire someone, pack your stuff up and get to your new destination.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think that's most of my questions. I was wondering if you had any last final thoughts on that, anyone considering moving or anything they should look out for.
Yeah, if you want to just post all my contact information from Bond Street Mortgage, you can do that. And if people have, not even a mortgage related question, but just a moving related question, I'm happy to, to assist. They can text, email, or call me. So if it's an estimate that they have and they just have a question on it, something like that, that's fine. I did it for a long time, and I was in that part of it. I was kind of the estimator and building, the job from the get-go. So, if people have questions on that, that's where I would lead them right to my number, and I can, help them out with anything like that.
Awesome. I'll definitely leave your contact info in the description. Appreciate you taking the time, Greg, to chat with us. I'm definitely going to have you back on to talk about mortgages and different lending options for people, but really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Will. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Take care.
So I'm going to stop recording.